So, there we go. Everybody got their AI? I assume that some of you have looked at it. Some of you may have even done some preparation. Some of you may be taking it out of its wrapper under the table. It doesn't matter, okay? Because today is the start of your journey, start of your preparation, okay? So I'm assuming nothing today. However, by the end of next week, I'm assuming everything, okay? And I'm expecting you to tell me when I get things a bit wrong, okay? So in terms of AI preparation, what do I mean? On the table in front of you is a set of preparation instructions. Instructions, guidance, I don't know, however you want to view it. But this is what I do in terms of my AI preparation. And very, very roughly speaking, if it's good enough for me to stand up and teach you guys and do it in front of a camera as well, then it's probably okay for an exam. Different stress, but stress nevertheless, okay? So this is a process that I've developed over a number of years, and it stands me, it stands my former students in very good stead, and I offer it to you with my full endorsement. I can't make you do it, but I do offer it to you with that, those credentials. So, what are we actually going to do? We're going to do some financial statement analysis, which mine looks like this, okay? And it's lots and lots of numbers. Just number city. Whoa, all of this stuff. Now, it's very individual. This is how I like it. So I have some things in red, I have some things in bold. I like to see things on a whole page, so the font is quite small. But that's what I like to do. And I have it in landscape. Okay? You will be able to access mine to see what I do. But you need to do your own. You have to have your own set of financial statements analysis. Once because I hadn't been very well, I had to do some teaching based on my colleague George's notes. And his notes are fine, nothing wrong with his notes, but they weren't my notes. And that was so stressful. I think it went okay, but I have to say it was an experience that I don't want to repeat. Okay? So it's very tempting to go, Neil's a great guy, he's really nice, he's given us all this stuff, I'm just going to use it. Error. Not because my stuff is no good. It's just not yours. And that's the difference. Okay? So, a set of financial statement analysis. Then, I do a set of what I just call AI notes. And this is the AI, all 33 substantive pages, okay, just in bullet point form. And this has no intrinsic value other than it's in Word now rather than being in a PDF. And I can manipulate the information into different forms, which I will need for my operational and strategic analysis. Okay? So that's all this is. It's also quite a good way of just reading yourself into the case. And it's more productive than just highlighting. I'm not a great fan of highlighter pens, I have to say. I think they are indiscriminate. So you highlight and then you highlight a bit more. And I have seen some people's AI which has more highlighting than non-highlighting. So does that mean it's the non-highlighting that's important? I'm not sure. Because it can't all be that important. Okay? And there's definitely quite a lot of stuff in the industry background and whatever which isn't that important. Okay? So highlighting, I think, is a bit indiscriminate, and it doesn't go anywhere. You've then got to read back through the AI to find what it is. And I'm going, what? Do you know what? Oh, I highlighted that for a reason, and I can't remember why I did it. Oh, well. whatever. So I do this just to, as a staging post, to get me to my fundamentals, which are the first, a set of business issues. Now, these are not business problems. And you might think the word issues is a funny word to use, but what I mean by that is the facts and figures that you're going to use to tell your story. And just for no particular reason other than to organize them, so it's not just a block of information, I separate them into the company. So what's dealing just with the company and its structure and what it does, and sort of internal stuff. The industry, so this is the cinema industry. So this is the suppliers and the products that Sequin sells. Then I do markets, which is the customers and competitors. And then finally, I do some stuff on the economy. That would be the specific economy for the cinema-going industry and the more general UK economy. At the end of the day, this is effectively a retail, it's a sort of service, a retail operation, so it needs the likes of you and me as its customers. So what is our financial situation? How are we feeling in terms of wanting to spend our money to go and look at a flat screen for a couple of hours in an uncomfortable or comfortable chair, listening to the person behind munching popcorn or whatever it is? So we need to understand a bit about what's going on in my personal, not my personal, but our personal finances. And that will be driven by the UK economy. And then finally, so that's what, that's the business issues. And then finally, slightly different angle. So that's going to be my story, carved up into nice little segments. I then do my strategic analysis, which is my SWOT, PESTLE, and Porter's 5 forces. People ask me fairly regularly, why do you do all three? Isn't it just repetition? And there is a lot of overlap, but they do come at it from different angles. And I would say definitely for this paper, Porter's 5 forces will be very helpful. The competitive rivalry, threat of new entrants, threat of substitution. And then actually the power of customers and suppliers. I mean, all 5, I think, will be relevant. Not as in Porter did 5 forces, blah, 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 a dissertation on Porter's, but how would you build that into the constructing an argument about, or a discussion of an operational or strategic issue. And then finally, in requirements 2 and 3, you will be given an ethical issue. Or requirement 2, you'll be given 1, and requirement 3, you'll be given 2 ethical issues to deal with. And so let's have a look now, and let's have a think now about what sort of ethical issues might come up. And we'll do some brainstorming on that today and also over the next couple of weeks as well. So that's what I mean by AI preparation. And if you have a look at my notes, that's how much work I've done. Since 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, when I got the happy message from Sarah that the case is Sequin, it's been uploaded onto our Dropbox, go, go, go. And that took me till Thursday night. So 3 full days for me. Okay. Plus a bit of research around. So I did my economic research, and I was looking at ethical issues and stuff, bits and pieces. Okay? So, clearly mine are going to be on display to the world, so they better be okay. Yours are private to you, so you don't have to look at all the ridiculous time-consuming stuff like formatting and presentation. It's just for you. But nevertheless, it's a good 2 days' work after today. I would suggest that's what you want to timetable in. Okay, so that's what we've got to do. We're going to make a start today, and we're going to start with financial statement analysis. So, could you get your AI out, please? You might need the dreaded calculator. And what I'd like you to do is let's start at the beginning with revenue. So I want you to turn to the management accounts, which start on page 19. You will need to look at page 20, which is note 1. And you will also need to read the background to the management accounts on page 15, which sets out how the revenue is analyzed between cinemas individually and the company as a whole. So what I'd like you to do is a quick bit of revenue analysis, okay, by the 3 streams. So box office, food and drink, and advertising. Think about which streams are allocated to the cinemas and which are allocated to the company as a whole. So you might want a subtotal in there somewhere. And then I'd like the growth, please, for the 3 years, 15, 16, and 17. Now, I know you're going to say to me, hold on, the accounts are only 15, 16, 17, so how do we know what happens in 2014? And you know that because you're given some information about 2014 in the history to Sequin. Its first cinema, Leicester, on page 12. Written in the text there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph down. So this is the AI is typical. The stuff is splattered all over the place. You've got to pull it together in your notes. So what I'd like is a nice table, please, of revenue growth by stream for the 3 years, 15, 16, and 17. Okay? And then can you appoint a spokesperson and be ready to give me some feedback. I'm going to put some data up on the flip charts for us to have a look. Okay, off you go. Thank you. Okay, let's take some feedback then. And Cameron, so can you just give me the numbers, please? Yeah. So I want percentages, please, for 2015 for the box office growth in 2015. 81%. 81%? Yes. Okay. Oh, you want the amounts? No percentage is right. Okay. So 81. Yeah. Food and drink? Shh. 16%. Right. Do you have it? Have you just done it to? You've done it. Yeah, you've rounded it. Okay. So this way, plus or minus 68. Minus 68. Yeah. Advertising? 85. Yep. Right. Can I just stop you there? I would, as good practice, use a single decimal place. So I have that as 84.5. And the reason for that is, you don't have to. You don't have to. You can do it to round decimals. But, and for increases and decreases, I think actually a round percentage is fine. But for GPs, definitely go to a decimal place. Because you could have, in 1 year, it's 45.4. In the next year, it's 44.5. Both of them round to 45, and it looks like there's been no movement, but there's been nearly 1% movement. Okay? So, and I just noticed that that's how the examiner likes it done. So my protocol is always percentages to a single decimal place. But I can understand that people don't. So 84.5. And overall? 23. Sorry, I didn't catch it. 23.5. Okay, 2016, please, Cameron. Go for it.
2016, that would be box office 46%.
46.3. Has anybody done it to one decimal place? Yep. Sorry? Cameron, nicely done. Nice done. Steph? It just saves me looking at my documents, that's all. 51.2, yep. Advertising? 55.8 overall? 47.4. Yep, and 2017?
Box office 51.8.
Yep.
Food and drink 50.3.
Yep.
Advertising 53.7.
Yep. Overall?
51.8.
Right. Okay, and then just those cinema subtotals that I was talking about, I've got 51.7, I've got 46.8, and I've got 20.4. Okay. So, much more exciting now is what's the story out of that lot? Story, please. First point, Alex.
Food went down in 2015.
Sorry, you need to speak, just hold on a minute. Sorry.
Food went down in 2015
Yeah.
because they no longer did it themselves.
Okay, so there was a change. So the change in restaurants in 2015. They used to run it themselves, and then they got in a subcontractor, and now they just take a fee, take a percentage. Yep. Another big picture point, please, over here. Sam?
Growth in the number of cinemas over those 4 years.
How can you tell that from that table?
I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
I've assumed
whoa. That is a really good example of answering the question that you want to answer and not the one that I set you. I'm not saying it's not true. What you said is absolutely true. But you've now wrecked my whole presentation for the morning. So thanks, Sam. Okay. From the table. Another have you got a comment from the table?
Sure. In absolute terms, the stream that is contributing. Oh no, sorry, we've got percentage. Sorry, in percentage terms, the stream which is providing the most revenue is advertising.
In percentage terms from that table, this is growth.
Sorry, showing the most growth. In percentage terms, the stream showing the most growth
Okay.
is advertising.
Okay. See, getting your answer precise, and imagine now doing that under the stress with a clock going tick, tick, tick. Very easy just to get it slightly wrong. And precision is going to be one of the things that you learn over the next 6 weeks. So, advertising showing the most growth. Now, the big picture point, please. Joe?
Box office has increased, mainly due to the festival, but also about the festival day.
How do you know about festivals from that table? Because box office?
Because of the two festivals.
I'm not disputing the fact. I'm just trying to understand from that table how you know about festivals. I can't.
Can I just how from that tape can we tell that there's a change in restaurants in 2015?
No, you can just, there was a change, something happened here, definitely. So I'm accepting, I'm giving a little license, because clearly something's happened, and I've allowed myself to be told why it's happened. But from that table, you wouldn't know about growth in numbers of cinemas. All you know is that it's grown, okay? And similarly, you wouldn't know about festivals. All you know that it's grown. So, go back to, because what happens, you might think I'm being really pedantic. What happens is you miss the obvious points and go straight into the detail. And in the exam technique, there'll be something really basic on the marking key, and you'll just go, yeah, well, that's obvious. And you go, but you didn't actually say it. So I want you to just step back out, right back, and just look at the table and tell me what you see on the table.
Total revenue has increased year on year.
It certainly has. That is a true statement. Would you say that in 16 and 17 that was good growth? Do you think 50% and year-on-year revenue growth is good?
Yes.
Yeah, totally awesome, I think. So, excellent growth. What question then, Joe, what's the follow-up question? When you make the statement, there's been excellent growth.
Why has it been excellent growth?
Brilliant. Okay. And that, so making the statement of what has happened is going to get you credit in SPS. Answering the question why starts to get you credit in AJ. Particularly if you've got two different reasons why, which you can then link together. This is the nuts and bolts of answering these questions. Okay? So, we've got some excellent growth. Why? What other observation, in particular, in relation to 2016 and 2017, would you make about those percentages? Holly?
Growth seems to be slowing in food and drink and alcohol.
A little bit. Much more obvious point.
They're fairly consistent.
Thank you. All these streams seem to be growing at broadly, I know there's little variation, broadly the same rate. Okay? What follow-up question then does that provoke? Why? Yes, you can narrow that. You can narrow that. It could be, why are they all growing consistently? And what might be a very general answer to that? Could be increases in price or volume, yeah. If two things grow at pretty much the same rate, what would you say about them? Related, connected. There's some link. There's some common link in all of this. I mean, those are staggering. Nearly all the same. You'd expect, generally, I mean, I did that analysis on Tuesday and nearly fell asleep. What is happening in this business? This is so boring. Because normally it has revenue streams going all over the place. We have lots to talk about. And I'm thinking Saturday is going to be a disaster because I'm going to have nothing to say. But I've got to go digging more deeply. So, what's the link? Okay, good stuff. So, now we need to pick up Sam's point about the cinemas. So we need to understand a bit more about what is going on in the revenue stream. And the examiner's name is Harvey, by the way. Okay? Harvey has very kindly given us in Exhibit 5 some analysis by cinemas. So what I would like you to do is do the revenue, the growth, the annual growth, 15, 16, 17, in revenue by cinema. And let's keep it simple. Let's just do the box office revenue. If I just have a look at that table. Yeah, box office revenue. Then you don't have to play around adding up numbers. Okay? So the annual growth in box office revenue by cinema in a nice table, please. And then, again, tell me what is the story. So the numbers are only a mechanism to identify the story or to generate the story. Okay, off you go.
Percent.
15.6.
2016, 11.1.
Yeah.
2017, 3.6.
3.6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nottingham.
2016 is 16.8. And 2017 is 8.1.
Yeah. Grimsby.
Grimsby, 2017, it's 112.9.
Hull.
No growth.
Overall.
Oh, I haven't done overall. We've done this though. We've done this.
We've done this.
We've
we
done
have
this.
this. Hold on a minute. I have a note somewhere.
So in 2015 it's 81%. And in 2016 it's 46%. And 2017 52%.
Sounds very rounded to me. What happened to my decimal places? Okay, so I've got 51.9 and that 46, so it's 46.3, so pretty much. Right. So, not wishing to crush Amy's confidence immediately, but boring, boring, boring. Necessary, but boring. Do you remember the marking key? One little box in the top left-hand corner for the numbers. That's for all the numbers for the whole of requirement 1. 7 boxes for the discussion. That's where the value is. So you have to do this work to generate the points, but you don't get a lot of credit for the doing. What you get the credit for is the discussing. So, Ben, start us off with your big picture story on that set of numbers.
Overall, its growth is going up each year, as in it's growing pretty well each year, year on year.
Yeah, total growth. What would you? Yeah, that's. I think we've done that. I don't wish to be picky now. I want some added value. I've already got that point.
Growth is, whilst it's still growing, growth is declining in the Leicester.
Ooh. So, something is going on here. Yep. Slowing is the term I use, so that you don't get confused with declining as in falling. So the growth rate is slowing Yep. And whilst we're on the table, Omar, another big picture point.
Same as the case for Nottingham.
Oh. This is right, so 1 out of 4 might be 2 out of 4. This is now starting to look thoughtful. Yep. And whilst we're here, Sam, have you got a third point?
Grimsby's growth is massive or slight anomaly. Well,
Yeah, so this is absolutely massive. So something either super successful or maybe there's something weird in the numbers. Not quite sure. So there's a question mark over that. Okay. And finally, Ramandip, one more point. And anything else? Just looking at the numbers. What I'm trying to get you to do is to be able to look at a set of numbers and go, right, here are 3 or 4 points. And that is what we do as ACAs. I know it sounds a bit sad, probably not something you want to put on your Facebook profile, but numbers talk to you. They do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So, what else is that table of numbers? You can talk to companions. What else is that table of numbers saying to you?
The Hull revenue is a lot lower than the rest.
No.
No?
It might be saying that to you. Not saying it to me.
The overall growth is led by Grimsby.
Omar?
The overall growth is led by Grimsby.
The overall growth is led by Grimsby, yeah. So what you're doing is looking at the relatives.
So Grimsby is distorting the overall?
Right, if I take Grimsby out,
Yes.
tell me about those numbers compared with these numbers.
It's a lot lower.
Ah, so what question does that provoke?
Why?
Correct. So, something is going on. Grimsby is there and clearly doing some distorting. But there's something else in here that's distorting. Okay? Because if we compare these numbers are much larger. And that then begs the question, why? And that brings me back to Sam, right back where we started. Why is total box office revenue growing at this spectacular rate?
Because of the growth in the number of cinemas.
Ha. So this individual cinema performance starts nicely. It looks like this from Grimsby. Okay, we've got a slowing trend. Something's gone on here. Don't know what that is. But actually, the key to these numbers here is in the blanks because there's no comparative because it's a new cinema. Okay, so the critical thing to this revenue performance is opening new cinemas, and that is the first theme of our AI. So the first theme is that revenue growth and that begs a lot of questions then, coming from there. Okay, so I'd like to have a bit more of a look at what the underlying performance is of these cinemas. Okay? If I say to you like for like analysis, does everybody understand what I mean? If you say nothing, I will assume yes, which means you're going to be asked to do it. So now is your time to say no. Everybody's saying yes. I would like you to do a like-for-like analysis of this revenue growth. Because what we've got is a mix of stuff in here. So you need to work as a group now. How are you going to structure this analysis? And then tell me what comes up at the bottom, okay, for what is your like-for-like box office revenue growth, year on year, 15, 16, 17. Okay? So a little task to do. There's not going to be necessarily a correct answer. This would definitely fall into the category of a good enough answer on the marking key. So this is developed skills. The examiner will give you quite a lot of margin, and it'll be for doing something sensible. That's what I'm looking for. So you need to do a like for like, and then you need to justify it to me why you've done it that way. See what's at the bottom line, and tell me the story then. Okay? Off you go. Okay, I've had a couple of bemused faces. What do you want me to change? So like for like means we've got to strip something out. What is changing each year? Don't want to be picky, Sam, but what is changing each year? In the revenue? We've got this huge growth because of?
The new cinema.
Right. So the number of cinemas is changing each year. What you like for like is the same cinemas each year. So from 14 to 15 is just Leicester. From 15 to 16, it's just Leicester and Nottingham. From 16 to 17, it's Leicester, Nottingham, and half of Grimsby. Because Grimsby was open for 6 months, that's why you've got that huge increase. So that's what you're doing when you're stripping it out, like for like. Yeah, remember, it's just good enough. That's all I'm looking for here. So, where should we go? Where should we go? Where should we go? Leah, tell us your story. Or tell us your table story.
So we
Oh, hold on. Hold on. Thank you.
So we looked at the average box office revenue per cinema, so we've divided it by the number of cinemas, so stripping out that they were growing each year, and we've seen that revenue is growing and then declining year on year.
Okay, do you want to take me through some numbers?
Okay,
How would you like me to set up this table?
so just have the years at the top.
17, 16, 15, 14?
Yep.
Yep.
Then we've got total box office revenue.
Do you want to give me the numbers?
So I've got 5447.
Where am I? At 17.
17, yeah.
5.
447.
Yeah.
3587.
Yeah.
2452.
Yeah.
And 1355.
Yeah.
And then the next one we've got the number of cinemas.
Okay.
So we had 4 for 2017. Then we've done 2.5 because Grimsby was only open for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then 2 cinemas and then 1 cinema.
Right.
Which gives averages of 1362,
Yeah.
1435,
Yeah.
1266 and 1355.
Yeah.
So that's changing. So 2016 to 2017 was minus 5.1%.
Yeah.
2015 2016 was 17.1% increase. And then 2014 to 2015 was a minus 9.5%. So negative growth. That's what we've looked at.
Okay, great. So, bit wobbly. It's not your thinking, the graph. Okay, so it went down, up, and down. Something like that. But definitely not 50% growth per annum. So that's absolutely fine. That's what you're doing something with the numbers. Okay? And each of you will have done something, and the crucial thing is that the growth is not 50%, something like that per annum. Marching on to global supremacy. Okay? What it is there's something different. Now what you've done is effectively looked at average revenue per cinema. Not quite the same as like for like. It's a version of, but it's average. I'm just going to show you my like for like calculations, if I can find it. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to just take you through this. So what I've done is started with the management accounts, and then from 25th, this is 17, 16, 15, 14. For 2015, taken out Nottingham. So effectively, that is just the increase in Leicester, which is the 15.6%, which you all did the first time. Then, to move from 15 to 16, I've taken out the 6 months of Grimsby. Okay? And so what you've got is the difference between 2775 and the 2452 is the increase is 13%. Okay? And then for 2017, I've taken out, just bear with me, Grimsby for 6 months, 6 months of 2017. Now it could be seasonal. I don't know how this works. I've just taken it as half, okay? And I've taken out Hull. And I've come to a total here. Okay, and that shows it's around about 5%. I've also taken out a special event, which they did in 2017. Just out of interest, I was just playing with the numbers. All this is doodling. It's financial doodling. Okay, there isn't a right answer, but I just wanted to see what they had done differently, which your average cinema wouldn't show that. Okay? And if you do that, then the underlying box office revenue actually goes negative. I'm not saying it is in decline. I'm just saying this isn't as good as it looks. And certainly, you know, there's something here that's not quite right in how they're looking at their management, just the bald figures of the management accounts. Okay? This sort of calculation, where you're being a little bit more precise than average, is the sort of thing that the examiner is looking for when he talks about like for like. He's expecting to use the information out of the management accounts, out of those tables. But don't worry. He's looking for you to do something and then to talk about it. Okay? I just offer that to you as an idea. Okay, this is how I've done it. You'll see it in my financial statement analysis, and there's another. I've done something else for OP as well, just down here, but that's a different thing. Okay, so the story isn't as good as it looks. That's just the main theme that we want to pick up. Okay, after that little bit of head scratching, we're going to have a quick coffee break. So 15 minutes break, and we'll start again at 11:15. Thanks so much.
Do you want to just briefly talk me through this like for like again?
Right.
What's the Nottingham that you've taken out?
Let's make a start. So that brings us to our second theme. So remember, our first theme for the AI is that the revenue growth is from new cinemas. So clearly the link theme is that like-for-like analysis is critical. And I can imagine that as a twist in the requirement 1, you could have it that I don't know, Alistair McBride says at the board meeting to review the results, absolutely fantastic, spectacular growth. You know, here we go. I've just ordered my new Aston Martin DB11. Okay? And Lisa Thorne goes, I've talked to the cinema managers, and it doesn't sound so rosy to me. Please would you explain to the board the underlying performance of the cinemas? Okay? He won't say, do like-for-like analysis. Okay? And so he's looking for you to do something. The averaging that you did here, perfectly good idea. Okay? And that I was just showing you something else different to do. But that's what you're looking for. I think it'll probably be, it would come up in a twist, if it's going to come at all. But the fact that he's got Grimsby for 6 months is a giveaway. To me, as an ex-examiner, that's what I'd be going, why has he done that? And the fact they're looking to grow these numbers. They're looking to double it by 2020 and triple the numbers by 2022. Okay, yeah. Paul.
Would the way we did it, so on the board there, would that be perfectly acceptable?
Perfectly good. Perfectly good, yeah. It's just a different way of looking at it. Yeah. There's no right way, just different ways. Okay. There are very few right ways in the case study. It's much more about, have you done something sensible in terms of the numbers, and then have you talked about the results? That's what I'm looking for as an examiner. That's what I'm looking for to see that's what you're going to do. Okay. Right. So, given that the performance may not be as good as we'd like to think, let's just have a look at the industry. So if you could go to page 8. You've got some industry data here. Okay, UK Cinema Association. If you just hold your finger there and flick to the back, Exhibit 14A, right at the first, it says, according to a recent report, the UK film and cinema industry, it does say comprising both production and box office revenue, so not quite, dare I say it, like for like, but it's an idea, grew by around 8% in the 3 months to March 2018. Oh, okay. I'm not sure anything else in the economy in this country is growing at 8%, but nevertheless, could you look at the data on page 8 and see if it supports that assertion? Clearly not that it's going to grow in the 3 months, because you haven't got the 3 months data, but do we see a trend that indicates that 8% growth is consistent, 8% annual growth is consistent? And have a look at that data and just play around with it. Do some doodling, come up with some other stats that you think might be interesting and help you tell a story. So, prima facie, does this data support the 8%? Secondly, play with this, come up with something else using the numbers here that gives you another trend, and talk to me about that trend. Okay, that's your job. Let's have some feedback then. Let's have some feedback. Do that. Now, I've got to come to the table over here because I was asking them if they had a story, and their strapline is, we can give you any story that you want. So,
We're accountants.
whoa, we're accountants. So, Steve, over to you with a story. That's all I'm wanting is a story from the data. So, what data doodling have you done? Take me through the doodling.
Okay, we've looked at the increase in revenue and the increase in admissions,
Right.
and also the average ticket price.
Right, that's quite a lot you've looked at. Okay, so which story are you going to talk to me about? Are you going to talk the increase in revenue, the increase in admissions, or the increase in, or the change in the average ticket price?
Well,
Which is the most interesting?
Well, the admissions and revenue sort of move around a bit, but the average ticket price can
Move round a bit. Well, can we have a professional word for move round a bit? Fluctuate. Thank you. Steve, you need to get into our fluctuate, yeah? Up and down.
Whereas the average ticket prices consistently increase.
Right. Okay, so which story are you going to give me? Are you going to give me a moving around story or are you going to give me a consistently increasing story?
Consistently increasing.
Okay, so give me some data, please. What data do you want me to put up here?
The average ticket price per year.
How have you calculated this data?
By the number of the revenue divided by admissions.
Revenue divided by admissions. Okay, and so the information that we've got is 13, 14, 2013, 14, 15, and 617. Okay, so for 2013?
6.54.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's 2014.
Still on a second?
Oh no, I'm on.
Yeah.
Was it okay?
Sorry, I was right the first time.
You were right the first time? Okay, 654, yeah, 14?
6.72.
Yeah,
7.23.
yeah,
7.41.
yeah.
And 7.49.
7 point?
49.
Okay. And?
And we've also got the percentage increases.
Okay, give me those.
Do you want to share those?
Yeah, it was 10.6.
Joe, okay, so where am I? Here? Plus?
10 points. So it's 10 points between 6.54 and 7.23 was 10.6 increase.
I'm
so
sorry?
Between 14 and, so between the 6.72
Yeah,
and the 7.23 was a 10.4 increase.
yeah.
Oh, we're missing it.
Yeah, I missed that. Yeah. You got it.
We're missing one of the average prices.
16, 15, 16?
It was a 2.5% increase.
And 16, 17?
A 1% increase.
Right. Tell me your story, Steve.
So it's difficult to tie that back to the 8% increase.
Are you calling the industry association liars?
But we don't know what the production costs are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it may not be the main thing, but definitely that 8%, we should not be using that, or we should be very careful about using that as a metric for saying whether the Sequin's results in 2018 are good, bad, or indifferent. Okay? So, question mark, 8% in Exhibit 14A. Yeah. What else? Another story? I'm cheating now because you only had to have one and I'm going to ask him for two. Anybody just looking at that data? Another story?
Prices increasing lower than the rate of inflation.
prices increasing lower than the rate of inflation. Do I see the rate of inflation on that table?
No.
But you just know it anyway, because you are fully up to speed with your economic data.
I know it's about 3%.
Okay, so we got inflation. Let's just put inflation up here. Around about 3%. The blindingly obvious. Talk to me about that trend. Increases slow. That's what I mean about the obvious stuff. Don't miss out the obvious. There will be a point in the key in SPS 4. States the movement and makes a qualitative comment. And the qualitative comment is good, bad, increasing, slowing, that sort of thing. That's all it is. Not even a reason. The reason why is it slowing is in AJ. But you can easily miss out the really basic points in SPS by not saying. So, crucial thing is that this is slowing. So the market is flattening, definitely flattening. Then, what question does that provoke? Alex?
Why is it flattening?
Thank you. Why? So everything you see, you're going to ask the question why. Just get used to it. 6 weeks, and then you don't have to ask why ever again. Okay? Okay, so I think that's the next point, is that the industry is slowing. And without wishing to jump quickly to requirement 2, we need to treat that 8% with some serious scepticism. Partly because we don't know what's in it. Okay? Good. So, there are 3 points on revenue in terms of our themes. And we can develop those more as you do more detailed analysis into the revenue. What I'd like to do now is have a quick look at gross profit. So I would like you to go back to the management accounts, and I would also like you to look at the cost of sales note on page 15 and calculate the gross margin on box office revenue. It tells you how to do that, and it tells you why they think it's more important. Okay, so this isn't just the GP straight out of the management accounts. They use a different metric. So for each of the 3 years, 15, 16, 17, could I have the GP percent for on box office revenue, and then the story, please. Okay. Let's make a start then. And Nick, take us through box office GP percent, please, for the 3 years.
So for 17,
Shh.
1758.8,
Yeah.
then 16 58.3,
Yeah.
and then 15 57.4.
Sorry, 57.4.
Yeah.
And very helpfully on page 16, bottom paragraph, it says gross margin on the box office revenue improved from 57.4 to 58.3 in 2016, so we got our numbers right. Yay. That gets us a tiny bit of credit. So, carry on, please, Nick. What's the story?
Well, it's increased over 3 years,
Increased.
every year.
That is a true statement.
Not massive increases, to be honest.
Look at the trend.
So yeah, the increase is small, getting smaller between 2 years.
Okay, so it's slowing.
Yeah.
So the increase is slowing. And what question does that invoke?
Why?
Correct. So, have you got an answer to why?
No.
No. Anybody got an answer to the question why? What is in cost of sales? Dig around, have a look. What's in cost of sales? Have a think now. Just have a bit of a think about why might that margin be slowing? And also, why might it change? Why might it tip into decline? Okay, just look at the information you got. What's in cost of sales? And why might that margin change? What is in cost of sales?
There's the distribution fee. Paid to the distributor.
Distribution fees paid to the distributor.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's why it's called distribution fees. Love it. Okay, that's the only thing that's in there. So, why might this be slowing? Why might it actually go into decline?
The mix of films that they're showing.
So, one, we've got mix of films. Why else?
Increasing fees.
Sorry?
Increasing fees.
Increasing fees. Okay? And that brings us, so the fees might actually increase. And then you flip really nicely into porters. What's our bargaining power? Okay, and you see how the bits of your analysis start to link together now. And you can make a really nice point about that. And then, lo and behold, sitting in requirement 3 is an initiative to join a consortium to improve bargaining power with distributors. And what the examiner would expect you to do is to link that back to your discussion in requirement 1 on box office GP margin. And there'll be a mark sitting in the wider issues. That's the context. They're coming under pressure on their margins. Okay? That's just a potential scenario. Remember, I do not have a hotline to Harvey. I'm not saying that's what it is, but we can think about the arguments for that. Okay, so our next theme is that the GP margin, box office, is dependent on the distribution fees. What is the, staying with the table here, Steph, what is the cost allocation to food and drink and to advertising?
Cost allocation.
How much of the cost of sales is allocated to those two revenue streams?
0.
0 question or 0 statement?
Statement.
Statement, exactly. So, I like it. We're getting the idea here. Okay, so your overall GP margin, not the box office one, but the overall, what else could affect the overall GP margin?
The revenue received from advertising, food and drink.
Revenue mix. So be very, when you're talking about overall GP, be very careful to check any change in the revenue mix. It's not going to change very much, because we saw how the revenue streams are all linked together. But they do move around. Advertising was moving around a bit more, okay? And there may be macroeconomic changes in advertising revenue that need to be taken into account. So just be very careful to also look at the total GP margin and revenue mix. Yes, Jay?
In terms of the overall GP analysis,
Yep.
if you can only analyse box office and overall,
Yeah.
how are you going to be generating that points? It'll be over.
Trust me, you will. Okay? There'll be other stuff in the key for you to look at. Okay? GP is not going to be a big discussion point on this paper. Much more about revenue and probably more about the operating costs. Okay? So I'm expecting this paper to drop down to OP level. Okay? If you've done previous papers, you'll know that sometimes they just stop at GP because there's a lot of information about the GP by the revenue streams. There isn't a lot of information in this. It's not that relevant. So I can see this quite easily dropping to OP. Yeah, good to talk about. Okay, so then just before we finish on GP, if you have a look at the amount of food and drink and advertising revenues, which of course have no cost of sales attached to them, and you look at Sequin's overall profitability, how influential are those two revenue streams to Sequin's profitability? And how much control do they have over those two revenue streams? Okay? So let's just have a little think about that. You're never going to say, yeah, I've got a story again, are you? But it doesn't matter because I have no ethics. If you say no, I pick on you. If you say yes, I pick on you. There's no right answer. It doesn't work. I'm sorry. Maria, take us through your story. Before we start your story, can you just give me some numbers?
Yeah.
What is the food and drink revenue for each of the 3 years, please?
So we did revenue mix. So how
No,
much
no.
contributed?
What are you just doing? I asked Maria a question, and she goes, well, we did this. She doesn't even go, that was quite a good question, which I'm not going to answer. I'm going to answer my own. She just launches straight into answering her own. So, could you just humour me?
Yeah.
Because I do get quite ratty as we move up towards lunch. Okay. Humour me with what is the food and drink revenue for each of the 3 years?
Okay. 675.
Which year am I in?
2017.
675.
Then 449
Yeah.
and 297.
Yeah. And advertising?
455,
Yeah.
296
Yeah.
and 190.
190. Right. One of the questions that I asked you is, what is the impact of those two revenue streams on profitability? But I was deliberately vague about what I meant. So, when I talk about profitability, what did you look at? Which profitability line did you look at?
We didn't.
You didn't.
Oh, we just did revenue mix.
You just did revenue mix. Right, so this story is going a bit off the rails, isn't it?
But then we did.
But, yes.
Yes. Well, we said that if you take the revenue
Yes.
from food and drink and advertising away,
Yes.
then we would be in an operating loss.
Whoa. So actually you did do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I knew you were there. I know. So can you give me the operating profit?
With that,
No, just as reported. For the 3 years?
783.
2017?
Yes.
Yeah.
260.
260, yeah.
And 113.
Sorry?
113.
113. Okay. So, and as you have appropriately surmised, if something goes wrong here or here, it flows straight down to the operating profit because there's no costs attached to those two revenue streams. Hold on a minute. I'll press a button. Missed it. I think if I press power, something will happen. I'll sort that out in a minute. So, so it flows straight down. So, how they have a really serious impact on the operating profit. Now, next question was, do you remember the next question?
Profitability.
No, go on. Hannah, tell me what was the next one?
How much control?
Right, talk to me about control. How much control does Sequin have over its advertising revenue? Not a lot. So we've got advertising. How much have we got over the food and drink revenue?
Not that much.
Why not?
Well, they have a choice to bring someone else apart from Jewel or take it back in-house. They have some control.
They've got a bit, haven't they? A little bit, but still not much. I would suggest. So, to my mind, those are really vulnerable areas to Sequin's future profitability. Okay? Clearly, a lot better than when operating profit was down here. But even so, you know, you take 25%, 20%, 10% off these numbers, it's going to have a big hit down here. Okay? So I think the next theme is impact of advertising and food and drink on OP and therefore PBT. We've got some finance costs, but there's not much there. Looking at OP now and thinking about the costs that are in the cinema expenses and the head office expenses, what are the cost pressures that Sequin will be under in this financial year just ending? So just think, come away from the case, just think a bit more economically now. What is going on in the economy for businesses in the retail sector? Because although cinema is a service, it's still serving the retail population. What are those businesses, what cost pressures are those businesses facing? And generally, from your reading of the financial press, how is the retail, high street retail sector performing? Okay? I want 3 or 4 ideas to start to populate our ideas bank going forward. Okay? Off you go. Start us off, please. Table group over here. Cost pressures.
So,
Hold on. Whoa. Got to get my board sorted. There we go. Shh. Yep.
So there's like alternative forms of entertainment. So
Cost pressures. Cost pressures on our cost base. What are the pressures on Sequin's cost base? I'm not sure what you don't understand. Cost pressures. So what are the costs? What costs do they incur? It's
distributor costs, the fees.
Distribution costs, that's at cost of sales. This is at overheads.
Staff costs.
Staff costs, right. Whoa, thank you, Niv. What is the pressure on staff costs at the moment?
People want a pay rise here and there.
They do. Okay. Just, is it just a lot of people wanting one, or is there something more fundamental sitting at the bottom of the cost of the payroll hierarchy? Heard of something called minimum wage?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
What's happened to minimum wage in 2018?
It's going to increase.
It's going to increase?
It's increased.
It has increased. Do you know how much it's increased by?
How much it's increased.
Does anybody know how much minimum wage has increased by? Clearly you're all paid far too much. Okay? 5.5%. Where is inflation? Somebody told me where inflation was? About 3. So way above inflation, pay increases. So we've got wages plus 5.5%. Okay? Now the reason I'm saying that is because although what is the base is being pushed up, so clearly, because I'm super skilled, I want my pay to go up as well. Okay? And no offense, Nick, but you're clearly not as good as I am. And if yours is going up 5.5, then I definitely want 5.5. And then the whole thing just mushrooms all the way up. Okay? Another, payroll. Payroll. Cost increase. Table group here?
Pensions.
Talk to me about pensions.
Has it gone up? It has gone up.
Whoa! Auto enrollment. Hold on a minute. Pensions expert here. Jake, talk to me about auto enrollment. What is auto enrollment?
Yeah, the companies have to pay a contribution.
Okay, there is now the workplace pension, mandatory, and you're right, it has gone up. Company contributions have gone up from 1% to 2%, so they've doubled. Whoa, what is going on here? So we've now got workplace pension. Okay. Another cost, please, for this business. Table group here.
Well, we were thinking rising rents generally.
Right. Okay. So they have rent agreements.
Yeah.
So, but they're up for renewal. Okay. Yeah. What else? What other costs do you have in relation to properties?
Right.
Shit. Please, thank you.
Yeah, business rates.
Yeah, business rates. Did you do? Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Ramona. Thanks a lot. Yeah. You're buying lunch over there. Okay. So business rates. If you run a property, what else do you have to pay for? If you run a house, if you run
gas, electric.
utilities.
Yeah.
Okay. What do we know absolutely about utilities costs? Which direction do they only go? Up. So, those are very real pressures on this. And this is nothing to do with efficiency or anything else. There's not a lot you can do about this. And you'll all be aware of some pretty disastrous stories, first quarter of this year, of failures in the high street retail sector. Okay? I'm not saying that Sequin's going to fail. I don't mean by that at all. But if you look on the BBC website, there's just been big announcements about further closures. House of Fraser, M&S, all sorts of people. Pound World has just gone into receivership. And so you look at why have these businesses failed. Now, they've failed for a number of reasons. It's not just cost pressures. But those cost pressures are right up there as one of the 5 reasons principal reasons why there are real problems on the high street. And they're not just affecting businesses, big businesses, they're affecting everybody. 5%, doubling. Business rates have gone up 6 or 7%. Utilities, well, they're just robber barons, that lot. Okay? None of those are remotely near the numbers you were talking to me about for increases in our ticket prices. Okay, so we've got cost pressures ramping up much more quickly than we're able to raise our ticket prices. And that's only going to mean one thing, which is our margins are going to get squeezed. Operating profit margins are going to get squeezed. So I think that's the next thing. Next theme is cost pressure. Okay. So we've done quite a lot of work now on the income statement. And we've got some good ideas for you to go away and have a look at. And clearly there's a lot more reading that you need to do and a lot more data analysis. My data analysis, remember, something like this, lots of pages, lots of numbers, red, all the other colours you've got. Okay? But the story of the financial statements doesn't just stop at the income statement. We have two other financial statements, controversially, balance sheet or statement of financial position, and the dreaded statement of cash flows. So let's have a quick look at those before we break for lunch. Okay? So, could you turn to the balance sheet, please? Also on page 19. And with some evidence, okay, tell me whether you think this balance sheet is strong, weak, or somewhere in the middle. Okay, so strong, weak, somewhere in the middle, and why? Off you go. Table group over here. Jay? Strong, medium, or weak?
Strong.
Strong. Why?
The gearing has become lower between 2016 and 2017.
Have they got any gearing in 2017?
No.
No. Sounds like quite good to me. No gearing. Another reason?
They've got a stronger cash position.
They've got cash. And anything else? Have you got a ratio or a metric or something? Did you calculate anything like that? No. Boring calculations. Don't want to do that. But I do know that Marcus did. Sorry? Current ratio. So remember, back to your professional level, current. And actually, because they have no inventories, it's also the quick ratio. Okay? And what number have you got? 2.4. Not sure I've got 2.4. 1 point, sorry? 1.69? Yeah, 1.7. That's a good point there. 2 decimal places, too much. Can't be bothered with that. Too long to write. 1.7. Okay. So no gearing, they've got cash, their current ratio, which is also their quick ratio, quite healthy, that's all okay. Did anybody look at working capital? Did you? Fully advanced table group here. Liking this a lot. Lost my microphone. Talk to me about receivable and payable days.
They are both going down.
Have you got some numbers?
Yep. Shall I do receivables first?
AR days, yeah.
So receivables days was 10.5 in 2017.
Right, and?
And 12.1 in 2016.
Sorry?
It was 12.1 in 20.
Sorry,
oh, no,
yeah,
that was
and the payable days?
payable days was 63.4.
Right, just hold on a minute. Oops, I've written over that. I'll sort that out later. Right. So, it's all right, Ramon. I'm on it. I'm there. So, let's just talk about AR days and AP days. How have you calculated those?
Payables, I did payables over cost of sales times 365.
Right. Don't dispute that.
And receivables, I did receivables over revenue times 365.
Don't dispute that either. What I'm just questioning is what is in revenues that would also be in accounts receivable? Is all of your revenues in accounts receivable? If I come and buy a cinema ticket, don't I just pay for it?
Yeah, so I guess box office probably wouldn't be in there.
I guess sort of probably wouldn't be. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so it's not, you're not going to get picked up on this stuff because what you're looking for is the trend, which is the same trend. But I'm just saying, just have a little bit of a think about it. Similarly, in payables, what is generally not in, so you said in cost of sales. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. What else could be in your accounts payable?
Rent and rates and that.
Some of your overheads. Yeah. So actually, I would have this number, the AR days would be higher because I'm going to use a lower revenue because I'm going to strip out box office, which is quite a big chunk. And my AP days would be lower because I'm going to add in some of the overheads, which I think would be in accounts payable. And you'll see in my illustrations of how I've done it. But the principle is the same. Okay, is there. So, and if you do that, they're both around about 30. So it's about, they're taking a month's credit from their suppliers, which makes sense because they pay a lot of their stuff monthly. And they're getting a month's credit on the distribution fees, and that makes sense as well because it tells you about the settlement of the fees. So that's sounding about right to me. Okay, so we think that there's not much excitement in the balance sheet, but I did hear over here a voice of concern. Leah, what was your voice of concern?
They've been dipping into their overdraft for 2 years, and then they've got a huge cash balance in 2017, which suggests that they might think, oh great, got tons of cash, let's go and get a new cinema, and then we go into their overdraft again.
We definitely need to look at this cash. I'm worried. I'm definitely worried. So, it's quite a strong balance sheet now at 2017, but actually if you did some of those metrics, certainly your current and quick ratios go the other way, horrible. Although they don't have gearing, they're running an overdraft. Okay, and you can have a debate about whether overdrafts go into gearing, but that doesn't really matter. So they definitely have borrowings. So they have fluctuating cash balances. So we're going to have to go and look at the third and final statement, which is the cash flow statement. So flicking over the page to page 20. What are, in a discussion of cash flow statements, what are the 4 things that you will talk about when you do a discussion of a cash flow statement, please? Okay? 4 things. Off you go. Here we go. Tricia, take us through.
Okay, the 4 main points for cash flow, we said looking at the end position, whether it's positive or negative in general. So, for example, 31st May 2017, the 735, it was...
Blah, 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 blah. Lots of detail. Not wanting the detail. Headlines, okay. Any cash flow statement. So one of the things you're going to look at is the end position.
End position.
Now, when you mean end position, do you mean the net cash generated for the year, or do you mean the closing cash balance? or both?
The closing cash balance. At
What-
the end, sorry, the cash at the end of the period.
At the end of the period, so
Yeah.
that's the closing cash
Closing
balance.
cash
Yeah,
balance.
okay. So could I add in net cash generated?
Yeah.
Thank you. I got it. So we got net cash generated and the balance at the end. Okay? I do like people who start at the end. Okay? If you look at my list, there we go. So could we start at the beginning? Top of the cash flow statement.
Yes.
What are we going to talk about?
The operating profit from activities.
No, we've already done that in the income statement.
Okay.
The operating profit we've already done in the income statement.
Okay. So then the next one down, we've got working capital.
Yep.
So receivables and payables.
So working capital, and that brings you to the cash from operating activities. Next.
And then we've also said PPE as well.
Yep. Non-current assets.
Yeah.
Investment. Yep. Third thing.
Well, what else? Do we have anything else? Interest.
There's a lot of looking around, but Andreas is coming to the rescue.
Interest, but it's quite small this year.
Oh, no, this is any statement.
Oh, right.
So financing
so-
activities. But as you say, pretty small. And it's going to be pretty small. I mean, even in the previous years, it's not much in terms of £1 million generated from operating activities. Okay, so that's the framework. We're going to talk about three things. If cash flow comes up, in requirement 1, you're going to talk about three things. Operating activities, including critically working capital. NCA investment, and the net cash generated and the cash balance. So, what is the story for 2017? And I expect you to use the word but somewhere in your story. Okay? Story for 2017, please. Let's wrap up. Michelle. Shh. Michelle's going to take us through a devastating critique of the 2017 cash flow. Fully confident in what she is saying is good enough. Doesn't have to be right, just has to be good enough. Okay.
Okay. They had very little non-current asset investment in 2017, so that affects their cash position. But in 2018, if they want to expand, they're going to dip into that cash.
Wow. Right. Could I be really boring?
Yeah.
Thank you. May we start at the beginning? Okay, that was point number 2. It's a great point number 2. I like point number 2, but I'm trying to get you into a process so that you're not looking around wildly at these documents when they come. You just go, oh, he's asked for cash flow. Here we go. Into my routine. 1, 2, 3 points. Okay, so the point you make is absolutely right. So there was no NCA investment. And then there's going to be a horrible but. We'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so can we start at the beginning?
Yep.
What was the first thing we were going to talk about?
I guess you could talk about the opening position and the end position. So I had said they started the year at negative due to the overdraft, but they've ended on a surplus because of the operating profit.
I'm having a real battle today, aren't I? So the last point, very good, is they've repaid the overdraft. And I'm sorry to be an accountant and be boring, but could we start at the beginning?
Okay.
First point.
So, in terms of their working capital, the change in receivables is roughly the same, but it looks like they're taking longer to repay their payables, so that's why they've got increasing cash.
So, working capital is generating cash. For a business generally, is that unusual? No. In a normal business, let's just have a little think, okay? In a normal business, just a general trading business, you would have receivables, payables, and inventory, okay? And normally, your receivables and your inventory will be greater than your payables. By definition, if you have a positive current ratio, by definition, they're going to be greater, okay? So normally, as a business expands, it absorbs cash into working capital. That is a normal business. But this isn't a normal business because, as we've already found out with the receivable days, a huge chunk of their revenue is cash, or as good as cash, it's credit cards. Okay? So, in fact, their working capital is flipped the other way around. Their receivables are quite small, and it's their payables that are bigger. So as the business expands, their payables will get bigger more quickly than their receivables. They may or they may not take more credit. In fact, they've only taken 1 day's extra credit, so very little. So this is just a function of the business growing. So this is a really nice business in that its working capital generates cash as it grows. The obverse to general businesses. Okay, so that's an important point to understand. Generating cash. Okay, we've got no NCA investment, but Holly, talk me through the but.
So I guess most of the investment is when you buy a rundown cinema that needs doing up.
Okay, so this but is going to be cinema refurb. Okay, roughly from what we've got, information we've got here, how much does it cost them to do a refurb? Last one we did in the cash flow statement.
Here,
Yep.
611.
600 grand. If they had to do a refurb, if they'd done a refurb this year, what would it, of equivalent size, what would it have done to their cash balance at the bottom? Sorry, not cash balance, cash generated.
Made it substantially smaller.
Yeah. Okay. How many cinemas are they looking to open over the next 2 years? Anybody? 4. Yeah, they're looking to go from 4 to 8 by 2020 and 8 to 12 by 2022. Very roughly, 600 grand times 4 equals 2.5 mil. Wow. They've got to find 2.5 mil of cash over the next 2 years to, 18, 19, 20, 3 years. 3 years to refurbish these cinemas, to keep them on track with all this growth. Okay? So I've put a big but here. And expect to see it flip negative again for the year. So expect to see cash absorbed in 2018. It might not, but don't be surprised if it is. And again, comment in the management accounts, record profit, but we seem to have no cash. Don't understand why. So you might have, as well as the spend on the ones that have opened in 2018, also spend on the ones that are going to open in 2019. So really, this not doing anything in 2017 is a false position. Okay, they're not as cash rich as it looks as if they are. And that brings us back to Leah's point, that she's worried about this cash because it fluctuates up and down, and that's right. We should be. So that brings us to our final theme, which is cash positive, but. And there's going to be quite a cash demand. And that's why these businesses that constantly grow by acquisition, in this case by acquiring new cinemas, rather than the fundamentals of the business actually performing, eventually get themselves into trouble. And the classic one earlier this year was Carillion. Okay, huge, largest service company to the public sector, and it kept needing to win new contracts in order to pay the costs of the existing contracts. It didn't particularly help that the government helped them do that. Okay, we're not recording this, are we? No. So they were in on it at one level. Too big to fail was something that was put in, until it just got spectacularly out of control. And these are called in the trade Ponzi schemes. So they're built on totally false foundations. Now, I'm not saying that Sequin is a Ponzi scheme, not at all. What I'm saying is there is a danger lurking. There's a big shark lurking out there. Okay? And relatively speaking, for those of you who follow regional economics, Grimsby, Hull, Leicester, Nottingham, they're not big metropolitan areas, particularly. And how is the flattening off of the economy? And we'll see that when we start to look at our first quarter data next week. That's something you're going to have a look at and get for me. How is the economy? How is it going to affect these areas? So they're doing a good job. This is a successful business to date. But some of the fundamentals aren't as robust as perhaps one would like. That's what we need to look at. So there are your, what have I got? 6, 2, 4, 6, 7. 7 themes for your AI preparation, your AI analysis. That's what you want to be familiar, because these are going to come back through in the requirements. And if you understand these and how they fit together, it'll really help you understand why they're doing whatever they're doing in the July exam paper. Okay, we're going to stop now in terms of the financial statement analysis. You've got plenty to do over the next week to get yourself up to speed. We're going to take a lunch break now for 45 minutes. So we'll start again at 5 to 2, and we'll start with preparation for requirement 2.